This is the Human Operating System Lab, where we learn how humans work, so we can build better lives, make better decisions, and help the people around us do the same. This is State Lesson 6, Meaning and Internal Dialogue. In the last lesson, we looked at focus and attention. We explored a simple idea. What you focus on becomes louder. What you ignore becomes quieter. Your attention acts like a filter. It selects what enters your awareness. But attention is only the first layer, because once something enters your awareness, your mind does something with it. It interprets it, it explains it, it gives it meaning, and that meaning begins to shape your state. So in this lesson, we are looking at meaning and internal dialogue. Because your state is not shaped only by what happens to you, it is shaped by what you tell yourself it means. Two people can experience the same event, the same mistake, the same rejection, the same silence, the same challenge, and yet inside each person, a different state appears. One person feels defeated, another feels challenged. One person feels rejected, another feels redirected. One person says, "This proves I am not good enough." Another says, "This shows me what I need to improve." The event may be similar, but the meaning is different. And because the meaning is different, the state is different. This is one of the most important ideas in the human operating system. You do not live only inside events. You live inside the meaning you assign to events. You live inside the story your mind tells about what is happening. And that story is not always wrong, but it is not always complete. Your internal dialogue is the voice of that story. It is the quiet narrator running beneath the surface. Sometimes it speaks clearly. Sometimes it appears as a feeling. Sometimes it sounds like a sentence. I can't do this. They don't respect me. This always happens. I'm falling behind. I should have known better. This is too much. And each sentence carries a state with it. Some thoughts tighten the body. Some thoughts collapse the posture. Some thoughts speed up the breathing. Some thoughts narrow attention. Some thoughts make the world feel smaller. But other thoughts create space. I can take this one step at a time. This is uncomfortable, but it is not impossible. I do not need to solve everything at once. This moment is information. I can respond better than I reacted before. Those sentences also carry a state. They do not magically erase difficulty, but they change how your system meets difficulty. This is why internal dialogue matters, not because you should pretend everything is positive, not because every painful experience needs to be turned into something cheerful, and not because the mind should deny what is real. That is not the goal. The goal is not forced positivity. The goal is accurate, useful meaning. Some meanings weaken you. Some meanings organize you. Some meanings trap you in the past. Some meanings return you to the present. Some meanings make the nervous system treat discomfort as danger. Other meanings help the nervous system recognize discomfort as a signal. This distinction matters, because the body often responds not just to the event, but to the interpretation of the event. A difficult conversation can mean conflict, or it can mean honesty. A mistake can mean failure, or it can mean feedback. A delay can mean rejection, or it can mean timing. A challenge can mean threat, or it can mean training. The event is the input. Meaning is the translation. State is the output. This is the model for today. Event, meaning, state. Something happens. Your mind interprets what it means. Your body and behavior begin to organize around that interpretation. Event, Meaning, state. Most people try to change state at the final stage. They try to calm themselves down after the state has already taken over, and sometimes that works. Breathing helps. Posture helps. Movement helps. Attention helps. But if the meaning stays the same, the state often returns, because the system keeps receiving the same internal message. If the meaning is, I am not safe, the body prepares for danger. If the meaning is, I am not enough, the body prepares for shame. If the meaning is, I have no control, the body prepares for helplessness. But if the meaning becomes, I am learning how to handle this, the system has a different instruction. If the meaning becomes, this is hard, but I can take the next step, the system has a different instruction. If the meaning becomes, this moment is uncomfortable, but I am still here, the system has a different instruction. The meaning you assign becomes a command to the system, not always consciously, not always immediately, but over time, meaning trains state. Now let's look more closely at internal dialogue. Internal dialogue is not just thinking. It is the way your mind speaks to you about what you are experiencing. It is the sentence beneath the emotion. It is the explanation beneath the reaction. It is the hidden caption under the image of your life. You may not always notice it, but it is often there. A person walks into a room and no one looks up. The event is simple. No one looked up. But the internal dialogue may say, they do not care that I am here. And suddenly the state shifts. The chest tightens. The posture closes. The person becomes self-conscious, defensive, or withdrawn. But another internal dialogue might say, they are focused on what they are doing. Same event, different meaning, different state. This does not mean you should always choose the easiest explanation. It means you should question the automatic one. Because the first meaning is not always the truest meaning. Often it is simply the fastest meaning. And the fastest meaning usually comes from old patterns. Old fear, old memory, old protection, old pain. The mind does this to help you. It tries to predict, it tries to prepare, it tries to protect. But sometimes protection becomes distortion. Sometimes the mind takes a present moment and wraps it in an old story. This is where awareness begins. You do not have to believe every sentence your mind produces. You can observe it, you can slow it down. You can ask, what am I telling myself this means? That question creates space. Because the moment you ask it, you are no longer completely inside the story. You are looking at the story. And when you can look at the story, you can work with it. Let's use an example. Imagine you try something and it does not work. The automatic internal dialogue might say, I failed. That meaning creates one state. Heaviness, embarrassment, frustration, avoidance. But now ask, what am I telling myself this means? You may notice, I'm telling myself this means I am not capable. Now you have found the deeper meaning. And that deeper meaning is what is shaping the state. The event was not only, this did not work. The interpretation became, I am not capable. That is a much heavier meaning. Now you can ask, is that the only meaning? Maybe the answer is no. Maybe another meaning is, this attempt showed me what needs to change. Or, this is part of learning. Or, I did not get the result yet, but I gained information. That meaning does not deny the difficulty. It does not pretend the outcome was perfect. It simply gives the system a better instruction. Not collapse, but adjust. That is the difference between meaning that traps you and meaning that trains you. One closes the system, the other updates the system. Now let's connect this to state control. Your state is influenced by your body, your breathing, your posture, your movement, your attention, but your state is also influenced by the meanings you rehearse. If you repeatedly tell yourself, "I always mess this up," your system begins preparing for that pattern. If you repeatedly tell yourself, "I can pause, learn, and improve," your system begins preparing for that pattern. This is not magic. It is repetition. The nervous system learns through repeated signals. Internal dialogue is one of those signals. Every time you repeat a meaning, you strengthen a pathway. Every time you challenge a meaning, you create a new option. This is why the words you use with yourself matter. Not because every word must be perfect, but because language organizes experience. Language gives shape to what the body feels. Language can turn discomfort into danger, or discomfort into growth. Language can turn uncertainty into panic, or uncertainty into curiosity. Language can turn pressure into threat, or pressure into preparation. The words are not separate from the state. They participate in it. So the goal is not to silence the mind. The goal is to train the narrator. The internal narrator should not be cruel. It should not be careless. It should not be dishonest. It should become clear, firm, grounded, accurate, useful. A good internal narrator does not say, "Everything is fine," when everything is not fine. It says, "This is difficult, and I can meet it one step at a time." It does not say, "You are perfect." It says, "You are learning." It does not say, "You will never feel fear." It says, "Fear is here, and you can still move carefully." It does not say, "This does not matter." It says, "This matters, so slow down and respond well." That is a mature internal dialogue, not fantasy, not denial, not self-attack, but guidance. Now let's practice. Think of something small that affected your state recently. Not the biggest thing in your life, just something small. A message that was not answered, a task you avoided, a mistake you made, a conversation that stayed in your mind, a moment where your body shifted before you fully understood why. Now ask, what happened? Keep it simple. Describe only the event. No interpretation, no story, just the facts. For example, the message was not answered. The task was not finished. I made an error. The person sounded quiet. I felt tension in my chest. Now ask, what did I tell myself this meant? This is where the story appears. Maybe the mind said, "They are upset with me. I am behind. I always make mistakes. I am not ready. I do not know what I am doing." Do not judge the answer. Just notice it. The point is not to shame the mind for producing a meaning. The point is to see the meaning clearly. Now ask, is this meaning certain? Not possible. Certain. There is a difference. A meaning can feel true without being fully proven. A meaning can be familiar without being accurate. A meaning can be protective without being helpful. So ask, is this meaning certain? Now ask, what is another meaning that is also possible? Not fake, not overly positive, just possible. Maybe, they may be busy. I need a better plan. This mistake is useful feedback. I am still developing this skill. This is uncomfortable, but I am not in danger. Now ask, which meaning helps me become more clear, capable, and grounded? That is the key. More clear, more capable, more grounded. Not more defensive, not more ashamed, not more reactive, more clear, more capable, more grounded. This is the tool for today. The Meaning Audit. Step 1. What happened? Step 2. What am I telling myself this means? Step 3. Is this meaning certain? Step 4. What else could it mean? Step 5. What meaning helps me become more clear, capable, and grounded? This is not about lying to yourself. It is about refusing to be trapped by the first interpretation, because the first interpretation is often automatic, but the second interpretation can be chosen, and that choice is where state control begins to deepen. Meaning is powerful because it connects past, present, and future. When something happens in the present, your mind often reaches into the past to explain it. Then it projects that explanation into the future. One moment becomes a pattern. One mistake becomes an identity. One rejection becomes a prediction. One uncomfortable feeling becomes a warning about what will happen next. This is how meaning expands. The mind says, "This happened before. So this is what it means. And this is what will happen again." But awareness interrupts that chain. You can say, "This moment reminds me of the past, but it is not the past. This feeling is familiar, but it is not the whole truth. This interpretation is available, but it is not the only one." That is a powerful shift, because you are no longer letting the past automatically write the meaning of the present, and you are no longer letting one meaning control the future. You are creating space between event and identity. Remember this: an event is something that happened. A meaning is what the mind says it means. An identity is what the mind says it means about you. This is where people often suffer most, not from the event alone, but from the identity attached to the event. "I made a mistake" becomes "I am a failure." "I was rejected" becomes "I am unwanted." "I feel afraid" becomes "I am weak." "I do not know yet" becomes "I am not smart enough." These are identity-level meanings, and identity-level meanings have a strong effect on state, because the system does not feel like it is responding to a single moment. It feels like it is defending the self. So be careful with the words "I am." "I am" statements can become deep instructions. "I'm not good at this." "I'm always behind." "I'm bad under pressure." "I am too anxious." "I am not disciplined." Every time you say "I am," your system listens. So use that phrase carefully. You can be honest without turning a moment into an identity. Instead of "I am bad at this," try "I am still learning this." Instead of "I am anxious," try "Anxiety is present right now." Instead of "I am a failure," try "This did not work and I need to adjust." Instead of "I am stuck," try "I have not found the next step yet." Small language changes create large internal differences because they separate you from the temporary state. They give you room to respond. They remind the system, this is an experience. This is not the whole self. Meaning and internal dialogue are not about controlling every thought. That would create tension. The goal is not to monitor yourself with fear. The goal is to become familiar with the narrator inside your mind, to notice its patterns, to notice when it exaggerates, to notice when it attacks, to notice when it predicts danger without enough evidence, to notice when it turns one moment into an entire identity, and then, gently but firmly, to update the message. A useful internal dialogue might sound like this: pause. Breathe. Name what happened. Do not add more than you know. Find the meaning. Question the meaning. Choose the meaning that helps you respond. This is how the human operating system begins to stabilize. Not by pretending life is easy, but by becoming more precise with the meanings that run beneath your reactions. Let's summarize. Attention selects the signal. Meaning interprets the signal. Internal dialogue repeats the interpretation, and state organizes around it. If the interpretation is threat, the state prepares for threat. If the interpretation is shame, the state prepares for collapse. If the interpretation is helplessness, the state prepares to stop acting. But if the interpretation is learning, the state prepares to update. If the interpretation is challenge, the state prepares to engage. If the interpretation is responsibility, the state prepares to respond. So this week, practice the meaning audit. When your state shifts, do not only ask, "How do I feel?" Ask, "What meaning created this feeling? What happened? What am I telling myself this means? Is this meaning certain? What else could it mean? What meaning helps me become more clear, capable, and grounded?" Write those questions down. Use them when you notice tension. Use them when you feel reactive. Use them when you feel discouraged. Use them when the mind begins turning a moment into a story. Because many states are not created by events alone. They are created by the meaning attached to those events. And when you learn to work with meaning, you begin to work with the architecture beneath your state. This is the Human Operating System Lab. Observe the signal. Question the meaning. Train the narrator. And build a state you can return to